start things off by saying hello and welcome to our friend Alex Zalben. He is the managing editor of Decider.com. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us. So, last time we checked in with you, we were talking about all things to watch for the spring season of TV, and now we're kind of doing take two. There's a lot of stuff coming up in just the month of April alone, so we wanted to have you back and talk about all the new shows, the returning shows, some kind of limited series, and some specials that are coming up in just the month of April. So let's dive in. A lot of people talking about the big buzz. Jesus Christ Superstar was last night. NBC's been doing a lot of these kind of live shows, and I feel like this one really hit the mark. What are your thoughts?
Well, we know from the ratings that it was bigger than Hairspray, so live musicals aren't going away anytime soon. I think people generally liked it. We were talking about it a little bit in the office this morning, and it wasn't a disaster, which sometimes people watch these because they're a disaster. It wasn't an enormous success where people are in love with it, like, say, The Wiz, but it did well. It was good, and there were some good moments. To get a little pluggy, if you check out Decider.com, we have 5 meme-worthy moments you can check out from the musical on the site right now. But yeah, it went well. It was, a nice tie-in with the whole Easter Sunday thing. So we'll be seeing more musicals in the future.
So is this one of those things where if you're not a fan, it's too bad. They're just gonna keep putting them down our throats.
Yes.
All right.
Basically. Yeah, I mean, I like musicals and I like watching the live musicals. And I think really what they're looking to do is they're trying to create talked about moments specifically on broadcast TV because it's so hard right now. And when you have a live musical, everybody, for better or for worse, kind of tunes in to see, oh, is it going to be a car crash? Can I tweet about this? What's the terrible thing that's going to happen? And once they're there, if it's good, like Jesus Christ Superstar was, they'll tweet about it anyway because they're already on. They made the time.
They made the time exactly. So what I was so curious about is, I mean, I'm a John Legend fan, and I think so many people are, so they wanted to see that. But then, of course, there was Alice Cooper, so that's kind of the, curiosity factor, too, right? So a lot of people were interested in that.
Hmm. Yeah, and Alice Cooper was a little sleepy last night, so that's all right. Hopefully, you got a good nap today. And Sarah Bareilles was great. I mean, the standout number of the show is "I Don't Know How to Love Him," and she nailed that, and everybody was really happy with that. So I think it's all good. I think maybe we'll even see them bring this one back for next Easter. We'll have to see what happens.
All right, round two for next Easter. All right, so that just kind of kicked things off for the month of April, but there is a ton of programming coming up. So we're gonna see a couple things just starting in the next couple days. What do you have for us?
Sure. At risk of just listing off a kabillion shows for you, I'll kick it off. April 3rd is the premiere of The Last OG, which is Tracy Morgan's return to television. Very excited about that. Tiffany Haddish is going to be in it, so that's a pretty big deal. And by all reports, it's really funny, so that's good. He went through a horrible traumatic incident where he got into a car crash years ago now, and he's slowly been working his way back. So I think even beyond that, though, it's nice that he's on a very funny show because he's a very funny guy. And the same night, one of my absolute favorite shows on television from last season is returning. It's Legion. Season 2 is going to be on FX. This is kind of set in the world of the X-Men movies, but even if you're not a superhero fan, it doesn't matter. It's from Noah Hawley, the guy who created Fargo, and it's ridiculously visually inventive. It's like nothing else on TV. It stars Dan Stevens, who, sorry to keep bringing up musicals, he was the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, so you might know him from that, as well as Downton Abbey. Aubrey Plaza is on it, and it's phenomenal. I cannot recommend that show enough.
So do we just need to catch up? This is season 2, so we need to catch up here in the next couple days so we can dive into season 2.
Well, the good news is there's only 8 episodes on season 1, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Season 2 is 10 episodes long, so you'll have to put in a little more of a commitment, but it's well worth it.
Definitely worth it. All right, and then we only have to wait a couple more days for the next few shows to come out.
Sure. There's a bunch of them. I'll just mention this very briefly, but April 6th, this is a hugely fast turnaround from DreamWorks. The Boss Baby is back in business on Netflix. So if you have kids, they'll probably be demanding you see that, and my apologies and my condolences to you and to myself who has kids. Then April 7th, there's 2 big premieres. Paterno, which is a movie from HBO starring Al Pacino, is going to come on. So So there's a lot of interest on that. And then the same night is the highly anticipated return of Trading Spaces. Paige is back on TLC with the show. I don't know if you watched it back in the day, but this is like one of the OG home redecoration shows, and it's great. So if you're into those things at all, definitely check that out. And the last thing on this kind of weekend thing, Howard's End is premiering. That's going to be on Stars, I want to say. that, and that's we actually have a review up, and it's a little mixed. You know, it's a gorgeous miniseries. Haley Atwell, who is Agent Carter, and been in a bunch of other stuff, is in it. There's also a great cast. But according to our reviewer, it's well made, but a little slow. On the other end of the spectrum, BBC America is premiering a show called Killing Eve, which is a kind of comedy drama about a serial killer. And it's from Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who I don't know if you ever saw any of her shows, but she's phenomenally talented. It's going to be one of the weirdest shows on television. And if you're a fan of BBC America's shows like Orphan Black, I think that's going to be well within your wheelhouse.
So, and that one has Sandra Oh in it, right? So if you're a Sandra Oh fan, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm curious, were you able to get any sneak peeks of these? Like, did you get a glance at Paterno at all? Because that looks, I'm wondering if you have any inside scoop on it at all.
I don't really have any inside scoop. It does look fascinating. It's something we're very eager to dive into and take a look at. We should have some sort of review or something up later in the week.
Okay.
The thing that's very interesting about it is how Al Pacino has moved into these, not exactly movies of the week, but HBO movies of the week.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of an interesting move for his career. So one of the writers here and I were just talking about this, and I think we'll have something up about that later in the week as well. But as it is, he's a great actor. It's obviously like really hot button subject matter, so it's kind of a can't miss as far as Saturday nights go.
Yeah, so the cast looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, just watching the trailer online, it's kind of one of those, yeah, definitely can't miss. And Al Pacino looks like he's doing a phenomenal job. And like you said, falling into those HBO roles.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be exciting. Okay, so we'll check back into Decider.com for more updates later on in the week. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, so teasy this episode. Sorry about that.
No, I'm excited. I can't wait to follow that content. Okay, so that kind of takes care of this coming week. And then continuing on through the month of April, next week we have more shows. What can we expect for next week, too? We're just filling up our DVRs and all of our streaming content.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. The TV, they keep making it. It just keeps coming.
Awesome.
New Girl is coming back for its final season on April 10th. So if you're a fan of that, this is your last chance to check it out. I was talking to somebody the other day who actually didn't know it was coming back. They thought it was already done, but nope. One more season, and then that's it. On another returning front, on April 11th, The Expanse is coming back to Sci-Fi. If you haven't checked the show out before, there's only 2 seasons. They're kind of shortened seasons, so again, pretty easy to jump in. But it's basically, the best description is it's like Battlestar Galactica meets Game of Thrones, because it's very eager to just kill off all of its characters. It's super shocking. I don't want to spoil any of the twists or turns, but it's one of those shows that's kind of bubbled below the surface. So if you want to get on the ground floor like a new Game of Thrones, it's definitely one to check out. And also on the space bent, on April 13th, Netflix is going to be premiering Lost in Space, which is their reboot of the series. And this is actually going to be surprisingly awesome. Again, on the like Battlestar Galactica, you never know what's going to happen. It's a little more family friendly, and it's still focused on the Robinson family lost in space, as the title goes. But it's more like one of the writers described it as a prestige drama, but for kids. And that's sort of what it is. So it's very dark. So if you have young kids, maybe stay away from it. But for the tweens and the teens and the older part of the family, you can all watch together. It's a clean show, but there's some cool twists, great effects, and we can't recommend it enough.
Oh, that's awesome. It's always nice to be able to, if you have a family, to find shows that you can watch together.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's one of those, but maybe just on the older end.
Yeah, I think what Netflix is probably going for is they had such huge success with Stranger Things,
Exactly.
So they're looking for the next thing, and it's kind of on the lines of that.
Okay, on the lines of that. All right, and then a couple other ones. We like to talk Walking Dead here. So Walking Dead coming up, wrapping things up.
April 15th is arguably going to be the biggest day in Walking Dead history, because they have the finale of this season of The Walking Dead, which is going to finally bring the war between Rick and Negan to a close. People have been asking for that for seasons. I can guarantee you, without it getting into spoilers, it's done April 15th. But the thing that's really cool that's happening is right after that at 10 o'clock is the premiere of Fear the Walking Dead, and they're doing the first ever crossover. So Morgan, who's a character on Walking Dead, somehow, again, without getting into spoilers, somehow is going to end up on Fear the Walking Dead. And there's a lot of questions up in the air on that because where they left Fear the Walking Dead the last season is every character could be dead except for one. Before this, Fear the Walking Dead took place earlier in the timeline of The Walking Dead. So how does Morgan get there? Which Morgan is it? A lot of questions up in the air, but people are going to be super interested, and it's such a big deal. They're actually going to be showing it off in movie theaters to fans the same night, both episodes. So that should be kind of a cool event if you want to check it out that way.
Oh, that is really fun. What a great way to watch that. That's a really fun event. All right, so that's April 15th, but there is another show that you wanted to talk a little bit about on April 15th.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the Circus is returning, which is kind of a fascinating thing. I don't know how much you've paid attention to this, but that followed the 2016 election and a couple of other things. Mark Halperin, who was one of the two guys who was a linchpin on the show, had a sex scandal and is not going to be back on the show. So instead, it's going to return for a third season with Alex Wagner of CBS News, and it's going to focus on the midterm elections. If you have any interest in elections or what's going on in politics, this is one of the most even and fascinating shows on television. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with this upcoming season with all of the changes, but check that out. Definitely a different sort of thing than the Walking Dead event happening at the same time.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Well, maybe not so much.
Yeah, kind
and
of.
Where can people find that one? Where's the Circus air?
That's going to be on Showtime.
That's on Showtime. Okay. And then one of my favorites, so on April 22nd, two shows coming up. One of my favorite, I've been looking forward to this, Westworld's coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of questions about this. HBO is definitely looking for the next Game of Thrones at this point, particularly because the show is going to be wrapping up in next year. And Westworld, I think, has the best chance. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on in the first season. If you've never watched it, it's about this futuristic theme park called Westworld, where there are hosts who are robots, and they're completely lifelike. By the end of the first season, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but you knew this was coming. The hosts revolt and start killing all the humans. So that's where we pick up in season 2. We're going to see a lot of other parks this season, at least 4 of them. We're going to see Shogun World, which is kind of an Asian, Japanese inflected world. We're probably going to see Roman World, Medieval World, and another mysterious world. We don't know what it is yet. But as the robots slowly spread this virus of awakening, there's going to be a lot more questions, a lot more twists. And if you're a fan, I mean, you already know this show is one of the most gorgeous shows on TV.
It's so beautifully done, and that's what I love about some of these shows. We're going to talk about another one where you can follow into it. And there's so many shows right now that they look like movies. Mm-hmm. And it's so nice to be able to sit down and appreciate that, and then you can go back and watch them again. You really feel like you're in that setting. So that's what's nice about Westworld. So that's April 22nd, and another show as well, Into the Badlands. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, Into the Badlands is another one that I feel like is kind of bubbling by the surface. It's on AMC. It takes place in a crazy futuristic world where guns have been outlawed. I don't know if we have any relationship with that, but instead of guns, they'll use swords. So it has a lot of wire work and a lot of kung fu. It's a little more fantasy than sci-fi, but the fights are arguably the best on television. Like, if you're watching it for nothing else, the plot is fun, the actors are fun, but if you want to see crazy kung fu fights with swords nonstop, this is the show for you.
That sounds pretty cool, just if you want to see some action.
Exactly.
I like that. And then we still have a couple more to get into. The 100, I have not jumped into this, but it's definitely on my list, just for the characters alone.
Yeah, so this is entering its 5th season on April 24th, and not to keep using the same touch point, but a lot of people initially described it as Battlestar Galactica for kids, or at least teens, and that's kind of what it was like at first, but it's become a show with some of the most complicated moral decisions on TV, where no decision that anybody ever makes is correct, and it always makes things worse. And so it takes place in the future, the Earth has been destroyed by nuclear war, except slowly society has kind of built itself up again. There's a lot of questions about this new season because there was a time jump at the end of the last season. So we have some people in space who are coming back to Earth. We have some people on Earth who may be fighting them. We don't know what's going to happen, but it should be a lot of fun to watch. On the flip side of the spectrum, you're going to get the second season of Genius is also showing up on April 24th. And if you don't know that, that's on Nat Geo, and it focuses, as the title says, on a different genius each season. This one is going to focus on Pablo Picasso, who's going to be played by Antonio Banderas. So that should be a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness, that should be fun. And then The Handmaid's Tale, highly
Yes.
anticipated season 2. I was talking about this yesterday with a friend. Can't wait.
Yeah, lots of post-apocalypse that we're talking about. That's on TV. But yeah, the second season of Handmaid's Tale, the thing that's fascinating about that is they've used up the source material. You know, they've gone past the book at this point, heading into the second season. Most of the cast is returning, but just as fans of the book and fans of the source material, we don't know where it's going to go. But we do know there's going to be a simmering of war coming back to Gilead, and it should be great. I mean, it's a really hard show to watch, but it's an incredible watch with some amazing performances, and I can pretty much guarantee that's coming back that way for season 2.
And again, one of those shows that's so you feel like you're watching a film. The experience of it, it's so beautifully done, and yes, very hard, difficult to watch, but man, is it good. So highly anticipated coming back for season 2. That's April 25th. Before we let you go, Alex, I'm curious, there was some kind of fun news coming out for people of my generation. I grew up watching Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid on PBS, and Netflix is bringing it back. Carmen Sandiego, Gina Rodriguez, she plays Jane the Virgin. Netflix is doing it live action, Carmen Sandiego. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. That is perfect casting for Carmen Sandiego. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it. I mean, My Touchstone is the game show version of Carmen Sandiego with the, oh my God, what was the a cappella band? The one that sang, "Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?"
It's going to come to me after this.
Yeah, we'll remember it later. So I don't think it'll be like that necessarily, but I think it should be great. I mean, and Netflix has done an incredible job of bringing back kids programming in an educational way, something that a lot of channels are trying differently. But I don't know if you watched the new Magic School Bus, but that was very good as well. It was a really fun reboot with Kate McKinnon in the title role, and they figured out how to make it work. So I expect if it's going to be a family programming, if it's going to be fun, it should be great. I'm excited.
I can't wait. And now I need to go watch the new Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Well, Alex Zalben, managing editor of Decider.com, thanks so much for chatting with us today. It's always fun to talk to you about the latest, and for more news and information, we'll have a link to Decider.com. He's going to have some upcoming details on all the stuff that you can watch, stream, download, and everything else for your favorite programs, what you should watch, and maybe what's not worth the time.
Yeah, we'll help you decide.
You'll help you decide, exactly. Thanks so much for joining us, Alex. I appreciate it. Great to talk to you as always. Hang tight as we get set up here for our next guest on GoLocal Live.